morning, my dear pupils. I am Marivic in Hormachuelos, your teacher in Mathematics 6. How are you today? How are you in this pandemic that we are experiencing? How is your studies going on in this new normal? I hope all of us will be accustomed to this situation, or we will slowly adapt the changes happening in our society nowadays. We will not lose our hope that everything will be put in its proper order in God's perfect time. Before we start with our lesson this morning, I will let you listen and watch a video regarding fractions. This has something to do with our lesson this morning.
Fractions, they're parts of a whole. Fractions, they're what I know. They're equal pieces, they're parts of a pie. Fractions, they're alright. Half a pie, half a tree. Halves of different things are different sizes, you see. But a half is a half, big or small. It takes two halves to make one whole.
Fractions are equal-sized parts of a whole. When it comes to halves, there are two equal-sized parts that make up one whole. Now try to say these fractions.
1/2. 1/3.
Fractions, they're parts of a whole. Fractions, they're what I know. They're equal pieces, they're parts of a square. Fractions, they're right here. Tells how many parts there are. Tells how many parts you got. When you have parts of the whole. Fractions, what you need to know. 1/3 of a pie, 1/3 of a bar. Thirds of different things are different sizes by far. But a third is a third, big or small. It takes 3/3 to make one whole.
It takes 3/3 to make one whole. 1/3, then 2/3, and 3/3. That's one whole. Now try to say these fractions.
2/3. 3/4.
Fractions, they're parts of a whole. Fractions, they're what I know. They're equal pieces, they're parts of a pie. Fractions, they're alright. Numerator never under on the top.
And U for never
D
under.
for denominator's always down.
D for down.
Numerator up, denominator down. Fractions are all around. Quarter circle, quarter square. 1/4 plus 3/4 makes one whole right here. And a quarter is a quarter, big or small. It takes 4/4 to make one whole.
Try to say these fractions.
1/4. 3/4. 6/8. 15/16.
Fractions, they're parts of a whole. Fractions, they're what I know. They're equal pieces, they're parts of a pie. Fractions, they're alright. Fractions, they're parts of a whole. Fractions, they're what I know. They're equal pieces, they're parts of a pie. Fractions, they're alright.
Okay, class, before we will proceed to our lesson this morning, let us have a review first. What is a fraction? Correct. A fraction is a part of a whole. And what consists of a fraction? Very good. It has a numerator and a denominator. What is then a numerator? A numerator is the number above the line in a common fraction showing how many of the parts indicated by the denominator are taken. For example, 2 in 2/3. What is then a denominator? Very good. In math, the denominator can be defined as the bottom number in a fraction that shows the number of equal parts an item is divided into. It is the divisor of a fraction. Before the discussion of our lesson, let me have a problem to let you guess what is our lesson all about. Let me read to you the problem. Steven prepared the London juice for his daughter. He mixed 1/5 cup of the London juice and 3/5 cup of water. How many cups of liquid did he mix? Now class, what is the number sentence of this problem? What is the operation to be used? And what do you think are the steps in solving this problem? And lastly, what do you think is our lesson all about? Our lesson this morning, class, is all about addition of simple fractions and mixed numbers with or without regrouping. There are different ways of adding simple fractions and mixed numbers with or without regrouping. When we talk of simple fractions, this is all about similar and dissimilar fractions and mixed numbers. Okay, class, here are the steps in adding simple fractions. Again, reminder, when we talk of simple fractions, it could be similar or dissimilar fractions and mixed numbers. Now, if we can have these similar fractions, look at the denominators. If they are the same, that is a similar fraction. So what you're going to do with the similar fractions, you just simply add the numerators and keep the denominator or just copy the common denominator. For example, 1/8 plus 2/8. They have the same denominator. Now, what you're going to do, the rule says that you just simply add the numerators and keep the denominator. So, 1 plus 2 equals 3. And keep or copy the common denominator, which is 8. So, your answer now is 3/8. Okay, you've got it. Now, let's proceed to another step. Okay, this time, class, we will now add the similar fractions. The similar fractions are fractions with different denominators, meaning the denominators are not the same. So to add the similar fractions, we have to determine first the least common denominator, or we call it LCD in short. For example, 1/2 and 2/5. When we look at this example, the denominators given here are not the same. So these are the similar fractions. So what we're going to do, we have to determine first the least common denominator. We will find the multiples of the denominators 2 and 5. So to get the least common denominator, we will find the multiples of the denominators 2 and 5. The multiples of 2 are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, and 16, and so on and so forth. While the multiples of 5 are the following: 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and so on and so forth. As we can see in this group of multiples, we can really see that the least common denominator or the least common multiple for the two denominators, which is 2 and 5, is 10. So, we will use 10 as the common denominator. So, what will happen to the denominators 2 and 5? it will be replaced with the least common denominator, or in short, the LCD. We will now use 10 as the least common denominator. And as we continue, we will divide 10 by 2, and the answer is 5. Multiply it by the numerator 1, and the answer is again 5. Now, next is you are going to divide 10 by 5, and the answer is 2. Next, multiply 2 by 2, so the answer is 4. Finally, you add the numerators 5 and 4. So the answer is 9 over 10. Can we still going to simplify this 9 over 10? No, they are already in its simplest form. Now we can proceed to step number 3. We can also use other way of adding dissimilar fractions. This time, we will make it into a common denominator. We can use the so-called cross product method. What does a cross product method mean? Example, 1/2 plus 2/5. What you're going to do with this is just cross multiply 1 by 5. 1 times 5 equals 5. And cross multiply 2 by 2. So 2 times 2 equals 4. And multiply the two denominators, the 2 and 5. So when you're going to multiply 2 and 5, the answer is 10. This is now the result. Simply add 5 plus 4 over 10. So the answer is 9 over 10. We have just arrived the same answer with different way of adding dissimilar fractions. Now class, which do you think is more easy method to use? Just reserve your answer. And now for the 4th step. This is all about adding mixed fractions. Mixed fractions are fractions that have a whole number part and a proper fraction part, such as 1 and 1/2 and 10 and 2/5. How will we add mixed fractions? To add mixed fractions, simply add first the whole numbers. And after adding the whole numbers, add the fractions using the same procedures for adding similar and dissimilar fractions. Then after that, express the answers in lowest term if possible. Take a look at this example. 3 and 1/4 plus 1 and 1/4. So to add mixed fraction, again, I repeat, simply add first the whole numbers, which are 3 and 1. And then, the fractions have the same denominator. So simply add the numerators and keep the denominator. So, I repeat, add the whole numbers, add 3 to 1 equals 4. Then add the numerators, 1 plus 1 equals 2, and keep the denominator, which is 4. So the answer now is 4 and 2/4. Since the numerator 2 and denominator 4 is divisible by 2, we will reduce it to its lowest term. 2 divided by 2 equals 1, and 4 divided by 2 equals 2. So the final answer is 4 and 1/2. Now class, since I have already discussed to you the steps in adding simple fractions and mixed numbers with or without regrouping, let us presume that you have already understood the lesson. And let us also presume that you have already given the summary of our lesson this morning. Now this time class, get your learning activity sheets in Math 6, Quarter 1, Week 1. And together, we will read the given instructions carefully. This is the direction. Add simple fractions and mixed numbers with or without regrouping. Simplify your answer to its lowest terms. Since you have done answering your learning activity sheets for this lesson, I hope to see you next week for another lesson in Mathematics 6. It's time to say goodbye, class. Thank you very much, and may the Lord bless us all, and may all of us will have a good health. Bye-bye, children!